Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, today is the first Friday of the month, which means it's time for Plant Fueled with Dr. Niki Davis. And she's here not only to answer your questions, but to make some easy oat muffins. Please welcome her to the show. Hi, Dr. Davis, and Happy New Year.
Hey, Chef AJ, Happy New Year.
What you been up to? What'd you do for New Year's?
Actually, we went to a really fun local event where we just kind of hung out. We did like an early eve since, I don't want to keep my son up too late at night, but they did fireworks and they had arcade games and all sorts of fun things for kids to do. So yeah, we really enjoyed it.
That
Music and day.
that is exciting. Speaking of your son, is he going on your retreat with you?
Nope, it's just gonna be ladies. Just
Oh,
gonna be a group
oh,
of
too,
ladies.
too bad because he likes to cook with you, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
We should have him on the show sometime. Maybe during that special week where you have something special to show. You know what I mean?
Yes, we will be doing that.
That's a
That's the
good
plan. Yeah,
that's
he will be coming on in March. So the first Friday of March, he will be on the show with me.
oh, that's going to be great. I haven't seen him in a couple of years. He's probably all grown up.
I was gonna say, yeah, he was on my show a couple of years ago, probably 2.5 years ago. So yeah, he's bigger now.
I remember, and that's the show that you told me about a spice that became one of my favorites called sumac. I never had it before.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that great? Yeah,
It's
I
fantastic.
love that stuff.
I love it. Nick at Local Spicery uses sumac to make my favorite salt-free seasoning called Salacious. It's so good. I can't believe I went my whole life without knowing about sumac.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of that tangy, lemony kind of flavor. It's really good.
It just wakes everything up.
Yeah, I agree.
Nice. So what are you going to make for us today?
So I'm going to be doing, so I said easy oat muffins, and I'm going to be making kind of two different variations of them. One with fresh apples and then one with fresh blueberries. And
Ooh,
yeah, oh my gosh, they are so good. They're so easy and they're so good. And this is a really good kind of fall winter recipe. It's always nice to have, you know, using apples in season. So I really like these for just something really easy to have in the morning, but they're also really good for just snacks because you can just grab one and they're just really delicious for that. Really good for kids. This is actually a recipe that my sister told me about. So it's not the same recipe, obviously. It's based on another recipe that actually uses eggs and brown sugar, but I tried it by using an egg replacer and date sugar, and they turned out fabulous. So I wanted to show these today, and yeah, they're so wonderful. So I think that everyone's going to really enjoy them.
nice. I don't think you've mentioned a sister before. Where does she live? And is she plant-based like you?
So she lives in Salt Lake City as well, and she is not plant-based, but she's vegetarian.
Well, that's
Yeah.
getting there.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean, I've been vegan for so long. She knows about all the swaps and everything like that. So we often eat a lot of vegan food together because it's not that big of a jump from vegetarian to vegan.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's her holdout? Cheese like everybody else?
Yeah, dairy, eggs.
Has she
Yeah.
had Miyoko's cheese yet? That stuff's
What
good.
what's that?
Miyoko's cheese, Miyoko Creamery.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Um,
convinces a lot of people that you can have cheese. You can have your
I
cheese
know.
too.
I know. Well, when I first went vegan a couple of decades ago, I think there was one vegan cheese out there, and I want to say maybe it was like Follow Your Heart, but it wasn't very good, and it definitely did not make people want to go vegan and think that it was possible to go vegan and have kind of some of those replacement options. And now, I mean, it's just amazing what is out there. I mean, not only just the plant-based cheeses, but also, cream cheeses, and you can get anything you want, and it really doesn't taste that different. So I think it's very possible for people to eat vegan easily.
Absolutely. They don't have to give anything up.
Right. So this recipe, the main part of it is oats. So easy oat muffins. So I'm just gonna start kind of putting stuff together. I've already preheated my oven to 375, and then I'm gonna be using this silicone muffin tin. These are fabulous, they're great. You know, these could possibly stick, but in the silicone, they just don't. They come right out really easily. So you just push on the bottom and they just pop right out.
That's the exact one that I have.
Oh, it is?
Yep, I love that one.
Let's see, what is the brand? Trudeau?
Because it has the little sides that are firm,
Yeah.
so it's not all wobbly.
Exactly, yep. So that's what I'm gonna be using. So I'm gonna start out, the recipe is in the show notes. So I'm gonna start out with adding my oats, which is gonna be 3 cups worth. So what did you do for New Year's?
Nothing. We not, I don't want to say nothing, meaning we didn't go out. We've never gone out New Year's. I do my vision boards every year on New Year's Eve, you know, where I cut out pictures from magazines and, you know, paste it to a board so I can look at it and just manifest my goals.
I love that. I need to start doing something like that.
It's fun and you can do it with your kid.
I know. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's the best time of year to do it. We don't want to be out driving when people are drinking.
You already have magazines, or do you go out and buy magazines?
You know, it's just funny because I've saved a lot of magazines over the years, and I get a lot of the vegan magazines like Health Science Magazine and Veg News. And so I get, those are the kind of pictures I like anyway. Also, we have some Sunset magazines and People magazines. And I'll be honest, like once in a while when I'm in a doctor's office, I might tear a page out if I see it.
You see something that looks especially like it'll work well for your
Yeah, and then I keep a folder all year round of inspiring pictures and phrases. So it's not that hard on New Year's Eve to actually do it. So, yeah.
That's smart to kind of prepare throughout the year. Well, so how many years have you been doing it?
Oh God. I mean, at least since I've been married to Charles, so almost 30. I don't ever remember not doing it, you know?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a really fun tradition. I would love to do something like that. Okay, so I put in my 3 cups of oats, and then I'm going to be adding 1.5 cups of plant milk, whatever you like. This one that I have is just a Trader Joe's oat beverage, and it's just oats and water, so I really like that one. So we'll do 1.5 cups. Okay. How did Bailey do with all the fireworks?
Yeah, she doesn't like it. Does any dog like fireworks?
No, it's so sad. I mean, my new little dog, she just was terrified, so we were just holding on to her all night.
And who, you know, when did I understand fireworks on the 4th of July, but when did this start New Year's Eve that we're doing fireworks?
I know. Well, you know, now they've got this thing where they do these drone light shows, which I think is probably a better option. Because it's still something that you can use to celebrate, but you're not terrifying all the dogs. This is just, so the next part of this is going to be 2 ripe bananas that have been mashed. And so I've just got my 2 bananas in here. And I just have this, I don't have a masher, so I'm just using this. This actually works really well. So you just want to mash those up really nicely, and then we'll add that into the bowl.
I would imagine these freeze really well.
They do. That's one of the things that's really nice about them is you can pre-make them. So on the recipe, it says that you can keep them in the fridge if they're airtight for a couple of days. But if you want to freeze them, you could freeze them for about 30 days. So yeah, definitely something that you could make ahead and then just be able to pull out, you know, whenever you want to bring them out.
I always wonder about like how long you can freeze things, because I actually just threw away today some celery I'd been freezing, and it's been there 13 months, and I figured that's probably too long, you know?
Right. I know. I don't know. I mean, I think sometimes stuff freezes really well, and I mean, as long as it stays frozen, it shouldn't really go bad. But I've noticed, you know, things just get that kind of freezer burn on them, and eventually air makes its way in there. Trying to do this without being too loud.
Okay.
But you want to do is ripe, pretty ripe bananas because it's going to make it a little bit sweeter and then also just be easier to mash. They're nice and soft.
No, I love that about bananas, but for eating them, I like them when they're not as sweet, you know?
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't want them to be too ripe. Once they start to get too brown, not as good.
Seems like bananas have a very narrow window of when I like to eat them as bananas.
Yeah, me too. All
Almost
right,
like
so there's my mashed up bananas. I'm gonna throw those in there. Okay, and then the next thing is a 1/3 cup date sugar. And date sugar is a good option to just, if you have a recipe that you're trying to make plant-based or veganize, using date sugar instead of regular sugar, cane sugar, or even brown sugar. I haven't had any issues with doing that. It seems to work really well. And it's like very nice and powdery. All right, and then we're gonna do the egg replacer. And the one that I use is just made by Bob's Red Mill. And it's actually pretty easy. You just use a tablespoon of it with 2 tablespoons of water, mix that up and let it sit. And that's good for 1 egg replacement. And so this recipe calls for 2 eggs. So we're gonna do 2 tablespoons of this egg replacer powder with 4 tablespoons of water. And then you mix it up really well and then let it sit for a minute. So we'll do that. There are other ways of replacing eggs as well. This is what I like to use for baking, but applesauce is actually a good replacer too. So you could use applesauce if you don't have egg replacer.
oh, wait, so applesauce is instead of egg replacer. Interesting.
Yeah, I haven't used it for this recipe, but I imagine it would actually work out pretty well, especially since one of the options for this recipe is to use apples as an ingredient. So I think it could mix in there nicely. But it does make me wonder the consistency, how it would turn out. All right, so we just want to mix that up really well. And it is pretty amazing that once you put this egg replacer powder with the water, it's kind of watery at first, but then after you let it sit for a minute, it gets nice and thick. So it gives you kind of that egg consistency.
Would a flax egg work? Asks Connie.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, that's another great replacer because, when you think about flax, if you've ever used flax seeds and put them in water, soak them in water, they get kind of that like gummy, kind of thick texture. So that absolutely, you could do that. Yeah, there are lots, you can just Google it. There are lots of replacements now for eggs that seem to work really well with baking. But yeah, flax, it's kind of the same idea as doing this. It's just something that can thicken up. Kind of work as a binder. Make sure it's nice and mixed. And we'll let that sit. So again, we're replacing 2 eggs. All right, let that just sit for a minute. And then the next thing we're gonna do is the baking powder. So that's a teaspoon of baking powder. And then we'll do a teaspoon of cinnamon and then a teaspoon of vanilla extract.
You recommend aluminum-free baking powder?
I mean, I suppose you could. I don't know that I necessarily recommend one way or the other. I certainly wouldn't want to be eating aluminum though. Okay, and then the vanilla extract. So I'm actually using a vanilla powder. I know I've mentioned this before. It's just ground vanilla bean. And I really prefer that over the liquid.
I couldn't agree with you more.
So this is just going to be 1 teaspoon of that. It's just easier too. You know, if you've used extract in the past, it's just, I don't know, it seems like it's difficult to get it to stay mixed, and then the lid gets stuck on there. It's also difficult to pour without spilling it everywhere. So
and I think it just burns off. I don't think you get that true vanilla flavor with extract.
yeah, I noticed the same thing, that you get that true vanilla flavor much more with the powder. And then the recipe also calls for a ½ teaspoon of salt, which is optional. I've made mine without, and they turn out great. But you know, for people who are used to having a little bit of salt in something, you know, you can decide whether or not you want to do that or not. And that is it. And then so we'll add in our egg. So I can show you real quick. That's thickened up really nicely. See how it's kind of gloopy?
Loopy, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very technical term.
It's kind of like glucky, which is also a technical term.
All right, and then we get to just mix all of that up. So this is another good recipe for kids. If you've got a kid who wants to learn to cook vegan foods, it's so easy because for the most part, you're just putting everything into one, you know, one big bowl and mixing it up. So I think it's a really good one for that. And then they get to see these yummy muffins that come out from their hard work. So you get that nice and mixed, and then you'll want to fold in your apples or blueberries. And so I'm going to do half and half. So it's kind of based on your preference. You could make a little bit of both, or you could just make the one. So let's see here. And the recipe calls for a cup of fresh blueberries or fresh apples. So you do, so you're going to split this in half, and then if you're going to do it the way I'm doing it, you know, do a ½ cup of each into half of the mix. So I'm just going to chop up my apple here. And I chopped up the apple just kind of in pieces that are similar, I would say, to a blueberry. So you don't want the pieces to be too big. But I find that they cook up really nicely, nice and soft.
Have you ever tried the envy apple?
What is it?
Called the envy apple. It's such a delicious apple. ENVY.
No, I have not tried that.
Nan asks, I can't do dates with stevia work. I cannot stand the taste of stevia.
I know, I don't like the aftertaste of it.
So bitter. And it's so, I heard it's so bad for your gut microbiome.
Yeah.
It could be sweet enough just with the bananas.
It could be, actually. I think you could get away with trying it with, because you're getting, I mean, it's 2 whole bananas, so you're getting a lot of sweetness, and then you're also getting the fruit in it. So if you do the apples especially, those are quite sweet. Yeah, so I mean, you could just try it without. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of split this up in half. Be as close as I can, just eyeballing it. That's pretty good. Okay, so then we'll do our ½ cup of our apples. then we'll just fold those in.
I bet a pear would be good if you didn't have an apple.
Yeah, actually, you know, the nice thing with this recipe is you really could kind of change it up that way, where the base is pretty simple, you know, oats and bananas, and it's already got that kind of natural sweetness to it. And then you can just add whatever fruit you like. I mean, I can imagine you could even do other berries. You know, you could do like a strawberry, so you get kind of that strawberry banana. But yeah, pears would be really good too. All right, so that's our apple. And then we'll do a half a cup of the blueberries. And I haven't tried, my sister said that she's done frozen blueberries and it worked out fine. I used fresh and it was great. So I'm not sure what the difference would be if you tried to do frozen.
When I use frozen, I like to use the little wild ones better because I feel like they disperse better.
That makes sense, yeah. And I love those little wild ones. They're my favorite. That's what I buy. They've got them at Trader Joe's. I know you go to Trader Joe's too.
Love Trader Joe's. Can't live in a city without one.
I know. Well, I'm always so impressed because it feels like you're shopping somewhere fancy, and then when you go to the checkout, you can't believe how inexpensive your big haul is. Okay, so then we got our blueberries. So now what we'll do is put those into our muffin cups. And I think the recipe says that you end up doing about 1/3 cup in each, but you basically just, you know, split it up evenly. And even if it goes up above a little bit, because they don't really grow very much, you can really fill them up pretty well. Pretty high up above. I put this in the show notes as well, but I'm going to be speaking at an event, a summit next weekend. So it's going to be January 13th. You know Linda Middlesworth?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so she's having me, Dr. Neil Bernard, and John Pierre. And it's going to be all about how to lose weight without dieting. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I put the link, it's a free event. So I put the link in the show notes so that if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to sign up for that event.
Right. And just guys, if you're watching, we stream at 4 platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and now Instagram. So you do have to hop on over to YouTube and look right under the video, and the show notes are under the video. You click more and they are clickable. So that link is right there. I tested it. If you watch on YouTube, I can also put it in the chat feature so that it can be clickable there as well. Connie wanted to know if you were using rolled oats and what kind of oats you were using.
You know, to be honest, I don't remember. I want to say that they might be either the rolled or the steel cut. Yeah, I don't remember for sure. I don't think it really makes that big of a difference, but I would say probably the thicker would make more sense to me because it's going to be baked. You don't need to do the quick oats. So something that's a little bit more hearty. The original recipe also calls for, I think it's toasted pecans. My sister actually has a nut allergy, so she can't do nuts, so she never made it with it. And I didn't add nuts to mine. But that would be another thing that if you wanted, especially with the apples, I think if you wanted to add some walnuts or something like that, you know, you could do that. But they're really good without. Yeah, these are nice too because it ends up making quite a bit. You know, these are pretty big muffins. All right, so I'll just kind of show you what they look like as they're going in. So right there, we've got our 6 blueberry on that side and then our apple on the other side. And they're going in at 375. You'll want to cook them for about 25 minutes. And then you want to make sure that if you use a toothpick down through the middle, that it comes out clean. And for me, in Utah, 25 minutes was perfect. All right, great. So I actually made another batch this morning, so we can go through, I don't know if anyone has sent in any questions, but we can go through some questions and then I'll show you what they look like when they're all done.
Absolutely. Well, I got one question, and then if guys have questions in the chat, please put them there. This is from Victoria. She said she really enjoyed your broadcast when you shared the products you like. If you haven't seen that, it's on this channel, and I can also link to that, where Dr. Davis showed many of her favorite products, from skincare to makeup to purses to kitchen tools. And she said, I like baby oil, but wonder, is it a good thing to use on my skin? If not, do you have a favorite body lotion cream that you would recommend I use?
So, you know, I tend to shy away from using straight oil on skin. And the reason for that is, you know, I don't know that we really have good data on this, but we do have data on sunscreen. And we know that when you put sunscreen on, some of the ingredients in the sunscreen do end up in your bloodstream. I've also had a couple of patients where they were eating a really, really healthy diet, but actually not a couple patients, one patient specifically. She was eating a really healthy diet and her cholesterol was high, and she was slathering on coconut oil a couple of times a day. We had her stop that and her cholesterol improved. Now, was it just that she stopped using the oil all over her skin all the time? Or was it something else? I don't know. But I tend to shy away from just really using a ton of oil all over your skin all the time. And I think just using a regular lotion is fine. And I would say, as far as lotions go, one of the ones that I recently discovered is called Farmhouse. And it's kind of more of a specialty company, you know, where you'll see their products in spas and things like that. But I really like it because they're very, it's completely vegan. And in fact, they have some products that I think are called like honey milk scrub, but the honey is actually made with dates, so it's not true honey. And then the milk is, I want to say, some other plant-based thing. But those are like really decadent, really heavy lotions. So I've been really enjoying those recently.
You know, Dr. Jessica Krant, our resident plant-based dermatologist from New York City, yesterday said she does not recommend coconut oil on the skin because she said it was comedogenic.
Oh, interesting. So what does that mean?
Like that it can clog the, I think it means it can clog the pores, but she said she does not recommend people use it.
Yeah, so it's probably comedogenic. I'm guessing means that it's because comedones are, it's like an acne. It's basically clogged pores. And so yeah, if you're putting, I can imagine that if you're putting a really thick layer of oil on your skin, it doesn't allow your skin to really breathe. So I could see that.
But she's okay with petroleum jelly, so maybe that's not oil.
Yeah, that might be maybe that's a little bit different than pure oil.
She said it was a beauty secret back in the day of the stars of yesteryear.
Oh, interesting.
I'll have to try it. The thing is I sometimes, you know, I don't want to get my pillow all schmutzy. That's another word, like gloppy and clucky. That not in the. Okay, so here's a question from Lisa, and she said, before I started following you, I was drinking, maybe she means me, but a homemade electrolyte water. I read about it and it's supposed to be very beneficial for women's health after menopause. I did see a huge improvement in my skin and ligaments. However, now that I know what I know about SOS, sugar, oil, salt, I stopped drinking it. In turn, my skin is not as plump and my ligaments, especially in my feet, are not as pliable. My question is, can I go back to drinking my electrolyte water while being SOS compliant? I make it with 2 liters of spring water, half a teaspoon of new salt, half a teaspoon of Himalayan salt, 1 teaspoon cream of tartar. By the way, the person that suggested the electrolyte water is a natural bodybuilder and EMT. As she pointed out, the first they do when you enter an ER or picked up by an ambulance is to start an IV, which is sodium water. So I know nothing about this. I just drink pure water as Dr. Goldhammer recommends.
Yeah. So I would say drinking pure water is what you should be doing most of the time. When you're talking about an IV, you've got to remember it's not that they're trying to pump you full of sodium and things like that. They're trying to match what is found in your bloodstream because they're trying to replace fluid loss from your blood. And so this is the best match that we can get. So it's not necessarily that they're trying to give you all of these electrolytes. It's making sure that we're not just dumping a bunch of water into your bloodstream and then making the sodium particles further apart and then possibly making you hyponatremic or low in sodium. So remember that the IV is really meant to just be its best replacement for your blood as possible without giving you a blood transfusion. So I don't usually recommend electrolyte water. Sometimes, like if you're feeling sick and you're just not really eating very much or you're eating very little, sometimes I will recommend to people, depending on who they are and what their illness is, to maybe do a little bit of like vitamin type water that's just water with electrolytes put into it. But for someone who's SOS free, that's not necessarily something I would recommend. I do recommend though, making sure that you're following with a doctor, getting those electrolytes tested in your labs, because I have seen some people where their sodium can get low if they're not making sure that they're getting those things in their diet.
Thank you. One of the Instagram viewers is asking, what sunscreen do you recommend?
So good question, because I haven't had to wear it for a while now. I can't really think of the name, but I'm wondering now, AJ, if maybe for one of my next episodes, say in April, that we do another my favorite vegan things, and I'll make sure that I add that to it. Because I have a sunscreen that my son uses. I basically, what it comes down to is I usually use mineral-based sunscreens. That's so that most of the protection is through just minerals, which just it's like a reflector. It reflects the sun using those minerals. But I'll think about maybe doing another episode, because I know a few people have mentioned that on your other shows that they really liked that episode of the favorite vegan things.
Great. I loved it. Thank you. And Mama of 5 boys says, can I use date syrup instead of date sugar?
I don't know how it would turn out, because that would just add in more liquid. So the one that I'm using, it's a powdered date sugar. I think that you could probably make a replacement if you're just careful with the liquid ingredients and make sure that you're not adding extra liquid that could make them not turn out as well.
Nice. All right. Thank you. This is a question from Mark, and one of the things is, and you can say this too, Dr. Davis, Dr. Krant always does it, that you're not dispensing medical advice. We put that in the disclaimer, at least on YouTube, where people can see the show notes. So I think he's trying to avoid a doctor visit, but he said, excuse me, I would wants to know about a possible problem with fungus. He has toenail fungus, jockage, and eczema on my face. It sounds like that needs, I don't know, can you diagnose something like that through telehealth? Because you do telehealth, which is a virtual appointment, right?
Yeah, sometimes you can do that through telehealth. I would say, to me, it makes more sense to go into someone, because especially if you think you have a fungus on your toes, sometimes it's a good idea just to make sure that that's actually what's going on. There's not something else. And so when you go in person, they can take a sample and take a look under a microscope and make sure that that's what we're dealing with. Even with skin rashes, you can take samples and take a look so that you know that you're treating what it is that you should be treating. But skin things like that, I tend to recommend that people go and see someone in person, which is why, even for me, most of my business is doing telehealth, doing lifestyle medicine through telehealth, but I definitely recommend that my patients all have someone that they can go see in person for exactly those types of things that come up.
Perfect. Absolutely. Actually, I have another question that was sent in, but I'm going to quickly check the chat. Okay. Melanie says, what is a good way to increase MCHC that was a little low on lab work? I'm not sure what MCHC is, so maybe you can tell our viewers.
Yeah, so that's that is something that shows up in your complete blood count, CBC, and it's really just a marker of the size of your red blood cells. So sometimes she's saying that it's high or it's elevated.
Yes,
Okay.
that's how do we? Wait, is she wanting to increase it or decrease it? Where did it go? Yeah, it helps when you put 4. What is a good way to increase it? It was low on lab work.
Oh, increase it. Okay. So then what that says is that, and again, not medical advice, because I don't know what the rest of her labs look like. I don't know any of her history. But sometimes if your cells are smaller, so the MCHC might show that your cells are a little bit on the small side. Of course, if it's in the normal range, then it's not a concern necessarily. But if it's below the normal range, sometimes that can be a deficiency that can cause your cells to shrink a little bit. And one of the main ones is iron deficiency. You can also have the opposite, where your cells can get bigger based on a deficiency. And a lot of times that's maybe B12 deficiency or folate deficiency. It really kind of depends on the whole picture, the history, and then the rest of the labs. But that's kind of the general, what I think of initially when I'm thinking about red blood cell size. But I would just talk to your doctor about your lab results, and if you have any symptoms or anything like that, and then go from there. Because if your cells are too small, then you definitely want to talk to a doctor about that, because there's so many different things that can be causing that.
Great, thank you. This is from Olga. What are your thoughts on nutrition during pregnancy, especially breastfeeding in young children? I'm brand new to this way of eating and currently breastfeeding. There's so much conflicting information out there. Do young children and breastfeeding women need more fat and protein than other times in life? Boy, this would have been a great question. Not that you can't answer it, but Dr. McDougall wrote a wonderful book on women's health, and I believe the chapter 4 is about that. And he always says they're not special, meaning not that they're not special, but you know what I mean, right? That they
and they've done studies where they've looked at breast milk from women that have totally different diets. And it turns out the breast milk has pretty much the same composition, no matter what your diet is. Now, of course, it's your body is going to make that breast milk that's perfect for your baby. But if you're not eating a healthy diet yourself, you're going to take all those nutrients, put it into your breast milk, and then you're not left with a really good, nutrition profile for yourself. So I usually recommend just making sure, like it's the same recommendation I give for most people, is just a really healthy, whole food, plant-based diet. I wouldn't say that you necessarily need to eat extra fat or protein, but you want to listen to your body. So if you're hungry more often, which I know when I was breastfeeding, I was hungry a lot. I ate food because I was hungry. So I ended up probably taking in more calories just because I listened to my body. I would eat when I was hungry and I would stop when I was comfortably full. I wouldn't restrict myself. So that's another part of this, is just being really mindful. When you're not breastfeeding, you're not going to be as hungry all the time. So you're probably going to take in fewer calories. So just being aware of that. It's not necessarily that you have to eat different foods, but just listen to your body, eat a healthy, whole food, plant-based diet.
Great, thank you. Were you were you already vegan when you had Augie and were pregnant?
I was, yeah, he's made of vegan food.
That is funny. Wow.
Yeah, and I had a fantastic pregnancy. Loved every moment of it, actually. I never got to the point where I got sick of being pregnant, which my midwife said that you are a first. But I really loved it. I had, after I gave birth, everything really went well. He was very healthy. Breastfeeding was no issue. And I did that all on a completely whole food, plant-based, plant exclusive diet. It worked really well for me.
Nice. So you didn't automatically like up your fat intake when he was born, even though you were breastfeeding?
Nope. Nope. But I
Okay.
definitely got hungry. I remember being hungry a lot.
Ah,
I just ate more food.
yeah. Nice. Okay. So this question is from Jackie. I know how important strength training is when your age. And I guess I don't know if she means your age, maybe she means my age or her age, but I'm not sure what is enough weight we should be lifting. I'm a 62-year-old active female. Is lifting 10 pounds of weight enough?
Mm. Well, this is going to be totally dependent on the person. So I think if you're starting a new program where you're wanting to get in more strength training, it might be worth going and just working with a personal trainer, even if you only go once or twice. Getting a good regimen and coming up with a plan so that you can do that yourself if you don't want to be paying someone to see someone all the time. But I do think it's important that you're making sure that you're not overdoing it, because some people in their 60s can lift a lot, and then other people in their 60s need to start out really slow and low and can't do as much. So I think having somebody who can help you come up with a program and a plan would be good. But strength
Thank,
training absolutely is a really good form of exercise as you get older to help with not only muscle strength, but also your bones, bone density.
thank you. Do you do any? I don't. Guilty as charged.
I do some. I will say that most of what I do is walking, but I like to wear a weighted vest that helps kind of put more weight on my bones. I do a little bit of strength training, but probably not as much as I should as well.
Thank you. Do you know anything? I don't know if, have you ever heard of powdered citric acid made from a strain of the black mold Aspergillus niger as a salt-free seasoning? I've never heard of that. So,
I have not. That's new to me.
okay, so then I can't ask this question, but is a person asking about citric acid and if it's bad or I don't
Hmm.
know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to say, if it's something that's natural, like the sumac berries, right? That's something that's natural that you're just grinding up. It's more of a whole food. If you can use something that's just it hasn't been highly processed, or it's something that's been, sometimes processing isn't about just making it become a different form, but it's also you're taking something away. So like olive oil is processed because it's removing the fat from the olive and leaving the fiber and a lot of the nutrients in the olive itself, and you're taking away that part. So if you're taking just citric acid from something, then it's going to be a more processed component. So it's better to find something that is just more in its whole form that has been minimally processed.
Great. Thank you. All right. You know, this is sort of an interesting question from Linda. Okay. What strategies do you have that would help food addicts adhere to a whole food plant-based diet? For me, adherence is the hardest part. It's not that I don't like the health-sustaining foods. I do. I love vegetables, legumes, starches, and fruits. The hard part is not eating the other foods we grew up loving, the treats, the treat outings, the usual places and usual subjects that made our days fun and now make them so hard to resist. You should take my upcoming reboot program. We talk a lot about that. But what would you say to that?
Well, I would say what you already said, do your reboot program, but also it's important to have someone who understands what it is like to have a food addiction. It's not as easy as having a tobacco addiction, right? Because the goal is that you just stop using tobacco. With food, you can't stop eating food. So it's a much more complex issue. And when I have patients who have food addiction issues, I recommend that they talk to someone who is licensed and a psychologist, a therapist who understands what it is like and how to help you get through that. There's only so much that I can do in those cases, and I really do think that having someone, a professional who can work you through that, because it's complicated, it's hard. It's not an easy thing to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. While I'm looking for more questions, maybe you can talk about your work at Love Life Telehealth, what states you
Yep.
see people in, how you see people, how often you see people, things like that.
Absolutely. And then I've got my muffins that I made this morning that are ready to show, so we can do that as well. So I am So I'm licensed as a family medicine doctor, but I'm also boarded in lifestyle medicine. So what I do through Love Life Telehealth, so it's love.life/telehealth is the website. But what I do through them is lifestyle medicine consults. So I will see people from the gamut. I've got people who are already eating a completely low fat, plant exclusive diet. And then I've got the other side where I've got people who are eating a standard American diet and just heard about this and they want to give it a go and see if they can get off medications. And then everybody in between that. People with really complicated medical histories, and then people who are already pretty healthy and just want to have somebody who's supportive and help them determine what labs to get every year. So I do that. I also, like I mentioned earlier, I recommend that all of my patients still have a primary provider that they can see in person, because you can do a lot through telehealth, but you can't do everything. And especially if you have acute things come up where you're ill and you need more help, you need somebody to be able to listen to your heart, listen to your lungs, look down your throat. You need to have somebody that you can see in person. But between me and all of the other doctors at Love Life, we cover most of all the states in the United States, and then we can also see people internationally. And it's really great. We can see people for either 60 minutes or 30 minutes, so you get that huge amount of time with us. We don't take insurance, so it is cash pay only, but a lot of my patients will use their health savings account. I actually have had some people submit we can give you a super bill that you can submit to your insurance and try to get some reimbursement. And some people have had success with that. But yeah, so it's lifestyle medicine in most states. And if you just go to the website, you can look to see which providers cover not only your state, but whether or not you have Medicare or not also matters. So you go onto the website and you can take a look and look at our bios and then determine from there if you need to make a choice between doctors who you want to see.
Here's a question from an Instagram viewer. Do you recommend cast iron or stainless steel for no or low oil cooking?
So I use ceramic. So I would say either can be used. It kind of depends on, you have to change kind of the way that you cook. So if you're doing like a stainless steel, it needs to be really hot. And the way that you can test that is by putting a drop of water and making sure that it rolls around on the hot surface. But I tend to use like a nonstick ceramic, and that's what I've really liked using. The other thing is, so for instance, I'll make hash browns. Hash browns, are known to stick if you're not careful, and a lot of people use oil to make hash browns. But on my pan, I cover it. You make sure that the hash browns are on there very evenly distributed. And then you have to let it sit and cook. If you move it too quickly, that's when things can get kind of gummy and then stick. But if you let it sit and really brown up, then you just have to flip it once and then let it brown up on the other side, and it's fabulous. So some of this is also just learning how to cook oil-free. And I'm sure, Chef AJ, you've got courses where you teach people about that.
Well, absolutely. Videos, it's really not that hard at all,
Yeah.
That's great. Here we go. There's a question. Do you see any women in menopause? Asks Marley.
I do. Absolutely, all the time. Yeah, and I have people who are, want to talk about medications, or they want to talk about lifestyle changes. They want to talk about what foods. So there are lots of different aspects of menopause, and whether or not you're having menopausal symptoms or you're just talking about your general health after menopause, you're at increased risk of having lower bone density and things like that. So yeah, there's lots of things that we can discuss, and you take it on a case-by-case basis. Everyone wants something a little bit different. So I love talking through all those things with people.
Thank you. There's somebody watching. I think you might have heard of him. He's wishing you a happy new year and me. His name is Anthony Masiello. Hi, Anthony.
Oh,
How are you?
hey, Anthony. So he's one of the co-founders of what was plant-based telehealth, which was acquired by Love Life Telehealth. So glad to have him on, and thank you for watching, Anthony.
Yeah, we got a lot, Anthony. A lot of your doctors have regular shows on this network. Actually, tomorrow is Colin Zhu for the Culinary Medicine show. So you did very well. I don't know if you can answer this, but Nanette says, "What's the best way to deal with trigger finger?"
Oh, go see somebody.
Yeah, like a hand doctor. That's one of
You
the
gotta
reasons.
see a hand doctor.
I had it real, well, I had trigger thumb, and it's horrible when you're right-handed because for months I had to wear a brace, and that's when I got really lazy and started using things like pre-chopped onion and, cabbage and carrots. And now I continue it because when you're in the thing, I couldn't use my right hand. And so that's why weightlifting and stuff is always such a problem for me because I don't want to like re-injure it.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I hear a little beep.
Yeah, well, gosh, I didn't think we'd have enough time to be able to, but the good thing is that now we can see what they look like when they've cooled and they're out of the silicone. But I will pull these out so you guys can see. Grab another. And they smell amazing.
You have to cool them before you take them out. This is advice from a former pastry chef, guys. People tend to
You
rush,
do.
that, and the thing is, it doesn't matter if it's vegan baking or not. You gotta take the time to let things cool, and that's how they come out perfectly.
Yeah, yeah. So here's what they look like. So you see they've grown a little bit, but oh, don't this look so good?
They look,
Apples on one side and then the blueberry ones on the other. So yeah, and they're so filling too. And then I will show you what they ended up looking like. I think the recipe says that you want to let them sit for 10 minutes to cool, and then you can pop them out, and then you can serve them when they're warm or when they're room temperature.
it's so much easier to clean up when you don't use oil, isn't it?
Yes. All right.
Oh.
So here's what they end up looking like. Aren't those lovely? So this is the apple one. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure so it's just got those nice apple pieces in it, but they're hearty. And then this is one of the blueberry. But yeah, they are just delicious. And they come out no problem from that silicone. You don't need to use paper cups or anything like that.
Right, and you don't have to waste paper. Are you going to be making those on your Belize retreat, which I think it's full now, isn't it?
It is. It got booked up. So I guess we could make these. Naomi, who owns the retreat center, she's got her own recipes that she uses for it. But this would be another easy thing that we can make while we're there. So we'll see.
Are you guys going to be cooking all your meals together every day?
Yes. Yep. So it's really a cooking and adventure retreat. So you get to not only cook together, which is building, relationships and community, but also helping give you real tools that you can bring back with you so that you feel more comfortable in the kitchen and more comfortable just, making these kinds of meals that are delicious, and healthy. And then on top of that, then we get to go adventuring and doing lots of fun things like snorkeling and river tubing and hiking to the waterfalls. So it's going to be a really fun retreat. It is completely booked up, but I'm talking to my mom who lives in Southern Utah, and we are talking about maybe doing a retreat in Southern Utah for the next one. So it'll be in the States, which in Southern Utah, it's pretty close to Las Vegas. So that would be where people could fly into Vegas. But yeah, so hopefully that'll be something that we'll do maybe later this year or early next year.
Well, if you ever decide to do one in the Sacramento area, I'll help you.
I would love that. I will take you up on that, AJ.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Rebecca says, do you have thoughts on treating minor colds with raw garlic, raw honey if you're not vegan, fresh ginger, and turmeric?
So I will be honest. I tend to be very, very simple with illnesses like that. If it's a very minor cold, I really like to just kind of listen to your body, relax, take it easy, make sure you're drinking fluids. But adding in a lot of those extra things, I mean, I can see the reasoning behind it because, okay, so ginger could possibly be helpful if you're a little bit nauseated. Turmeric is an anti-inflammatory. So I can see why you think that you want to add in all those things, but I'll say I never do that stuff. I just listen to my body. I just make sure that I'm staying hydrated, that I'm relaxing and resting. Your body is really good at healing itself. And so just making sure that you're drinking water and eating healthy foods, you don't need to really do anything extra besides that, in my opinion.
Nice. Okay, here's a question. Do you think that eating a more alkaline diet does help for bone health? Asks Marley.
We know that it does, actually. So we know that if you're eating a diet that is more acidic, that your body will take calcium from your bones because it's a positive charge and buffer that acid. So having a diet that's more alkaline so that your body doesn't have to take calcium from your bones makes a lot of sense. And I think that that's why we see that in countries where they eat a lot of meat and dairy, that we end up seeing more rates of osteoporosis or low bone density than in places where they eat more plant foods, which end up being more alkaline.
Thanks. And here's a question on cookware from Rebecca. My La Crusette has about 10 chips in the bottom. Do I need to throw it out? I don't know what it's made of. Do you know what it's made of?
I don't know if that's a ceramic one. I think it might be. But that would be something that I would ask the manufacturer. I'm not really sure.
I would probably do it though. I mean, that's just me, but I'd rather err on the side of caution.
I
And
know. And especially if you're using something that is prone to chip like that, you never know where did those chips go. Did they end up getting into your food? So maybe finding something that isn't likely to chip.
I make a muffin. I've made it for years. It's Forks Over Knives. One of the first recipes they publish is called Just Banana Muffins for people that are worried about using dates or date sugar or date syrup and don't want to have to resort to like the fake stuff like stevia. And I keep them in the fridge or in the freezer, excuse me. And like if I want a quick snack, what I'll do is I'll take it out and I'll either defrost it on the counter or maybe microwave it, and then I'll cut it in half and I'll like toast it and I'll put some fruit sweetened jam on it, and it's yummy.
Ooh, I might have to try that with these. I think
It's
that's so,
really good. It's actually really good. And I like
yeah.
to do that. Okay. Anthony says, not the Anthony Masiello though, different Anthony. I mean, because this would be funny if it was the other Anthony saying it, unless maybe he does drink coffee. He said, I'm committing to a whole food plant-based diet this new year. Well, congrats, Anthony. What is your advice on stopping coffee?
So, it's interesting because I think a few years ago, I did a really deep dive into the data that we have on coffee because there are lots of studies, some that say, coffee's not good, others that say coffee's great. It turns out, that coffee, so it's from a bean that actually has a lot of antioxidants in it. And it's actually one of the best ways that people get antioxidants in the country, unfortunately, because they're not eating the blueberries, or the blackberries that they should be. So they're getting a lot of that from the coffee. From what I know and the data that I've seen, it seems like as long as you're not overdoing it with coffee, meaning, over 6 to 8 cups a day, that it's actually can be beneficial for your health and you can live longer. So I personally have my daily cup of coffee and I love it. And I know other people just choose not to have it. And I think that you could go either way. I wouldn't ever say that you need to start it, certainly. But if you're looking to have something, green tea is another good option that has less caffeine in it, but also a lot of good antioxidants in it. So if you really like to have a warm, something warm to drink in the morning, you could either do, if you don't want caffeine, a decaffeinated tea or a decaf tea. But if you like to have your morning coffee, I see nothing wrong with that, as long as you're not just having cup after cup after cup all day long. And then the other thing to think about, which I deal a lot with my patients, is sleep. So if you're having issues with sleep, you just want to be really careful that you're not having caffeine too late in the day. So I think for most people, stopping around noon seems to be okay. But if you're still struggling with sleep, it's worth looking into.
Right. But the question was how to stop.
Well, so is he wanting to stop, or he's saying that should he
Well,
stop?
no, the question was how to stop.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. People hear what they want to hear when they have the habit that's actually being discussed now, don't they? I'm just
Well, I
teasing.
thought he was saying that what he was wondering if he should stop, if it was something that would be recommended. But if you're looking to stop coffee, you're going to go through some withdrawals. So it's very typical to have headaches if you stop drinking coffee. So just taking it down slowly. So if you have a few cups a day, then you just want to decrease it down slowly over time until you stop. But it is a habit. So it takes some time to get used to having a new habit. And sometimes having a replacement for that is helpful. So if you're trying to stop that, having something else that you can go to. So whether that's a decaf tea in the morning, so you're still drinking something that's hot, so that habit has now been replaced by something else. That's what I would recommend.
Yeah, so a lot of people, believe it or not, go to the True North Health Center and fast to get over that more quickly, without, and it's not that there's not a detox and rebound headaches, but I've seen a lot of people do that there,
Yeah, yep, definitely.
Yep, that's good. Okay. Da-da-da-da. People are asking what the best cookware is. I feel like you said, either the ceramic that you use or stainless steel.
Yeah, yep, I agree.
Yeah.
The ceramic is nice because it's already, non-stick. Stainless
Oh,
steel, you need to be a little bit careful.
yeah. Karen is saying La Crusette is cast iron. So we know that if a pan is Teflon and it's chipped, you shouldn't use it, but I don't know much about cast iron.
I don't either. Yeah. But I would say in general, having a chipped pot or pan is probably not a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, some of these look more like statements than questions. Jesse comments, coffee's only good if you're on a bad diet. That's funny, Jesse. Well, you'll find out next month for sure, Gina, but she wants to know, does Augie still like to wear his hair long?
He does. Yep. Yeah, it's longer than mine now. Now that I cut mine, but yeah, he still loves it.
Nice. Well, you're in a cold climate, so
Yeah.
good.
No, it's snowing right now.
One of the Instagram viewers is asking if you have ever heard of mushroom coffee and what do you think about it?
I have heard of it. I haven't tried it. Yeah. So I'd be curious to hear what other people think of it, if it's any good. But
Nice.
my that it's mushrooms. It's like a mushroom powder, I think, that you end up using just like you would regular coffee grounds, but then without the caffeine. And I've heard that it tastes pretty similar to regular coffee.
Well, if people are really drinking it for the taste and not just for the addictive qualities of the caffeine, I like Say Me, and it's made out of literally just one ingredient, organic brown rice. I mean, I don't use coffee, but it tastes exactly like it. So I use it in recipes where I'm trying to get a coffee flavor.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
she makes decaffeinated green tea. Scout would like to know, how well does Parkinson's respond to whole food plant-based?
Oh boy, that is an excellent question. Um, there's not a lot of data yet because that's tricky. We have medications that can help kind of slow the progression of the disease, but we are needing data that shows that a whole food plant-based diet can help with possible regression. And we will see. I know that there are some studies that are happening right now, not necessarily with Parkinson's, but with dementia, Alzheimer's, where they're looking at a plant-based diet and whether or not it can help with either stopping the disease process or reversing it. So I think that's still to come.
Yeah, I've seen some patients at True North that had that. So anyway, well, thanks, Dr. Davis. This was a lot of fun. We look forward to having you back next month with your son Augie doing some kid-friendly cooking. That'll be
Well,
great.
yeah, not next month, but it'll be the month after, because next month,
Oh,
February,
oh, that's right. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's right.
I
I
know.
keep, I'm already, it's because my birthday's March. I'm already thinking, hey, when is March going to be? Next month. So you'll be on before Super Bowl. So
Yeah,
that's a hint right there of what you can make.
maybe we'll do some dips, some chips and dips.
Yum. People are saying that they think mushroom coffee may be loaded with oil. I don't know anything about it.
Oh,
So maybe
I don't
check
get it.
out if that is. A few people have mentioned that in the chat. So
Mm.
yeah, I don't know anything about it. I only drink two things. I drink water and I drink what I'm drinking now, which is pot liquor, leftover broth from steaming the breakfast greens, and it's delicious.
Oh, I love that you do that. I think that's so smart.
Yeah, it gives me the same mood. Once in a while, like on New Year's Eve, we had some Martinellis, which is,
Yeah.
but for the most part, I think we're meant to drink water. One of the viewers is saying, but which ceramic cookware do you recommend?
Well, so I don't know all the brands out there, but the one that I just happen to have is called Scan Pan.
That's what Mary McDougall uses too.
Yeah. I think that that's probably how I heard about it. I've been an avid McDougall fan for a very long time. So
Yeah, you did an internship with him, right? And also one at True North.
I did. Yeah, very lucky that I got to do those.
How fun is that? So, the recipe called for oats. Is it steel cut oats or some other kind?
Yeah, I think it could be steel cut, it could be rolled oats. Probably those two would be the best. You wouldn't want to use the whole oat groat. And then I don't think that you want to use the quick oats either. So steel cut oats or rolled oats would be fine.
Sounds good. Well, thanks so much, Dr. Davis, and we'll see you back here the first Friday of February.
Sounds great. Nice to
Great.
see you as always.
Thanks. Thanks so much for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time for Dr. Colin Zhu. And let's see, he is going to be talking about a timely topic, which is weight loss. Thanks.